Welcome again to Cottage Talk. I'm Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Tony Gold. This is another episode of Cottage Talk today. This is my 17th straight day of doing shows on Fulham Football Club. I should say, here's a good one for you. It's actually the 16th straight day. Tony, I can't even start a show without making a mistake. So it's 16 straight days. I'm doing a show each and every day in the month of January. And like I said, this is the 16th day. And after we're done, if you want to listen back to this, you're going to have to join our Cottage Talk Patreon page because it's going to be exclusively there. The podcast, the stream is live right now on YouTube, on Facebook, and on my X account, but it will only still be up as a video on YouTube. Just want to mention that. And if you want continued episodes to the end of the year, well, I'm going to need 50 additional paid members of the Cottage Talk Patreon page. So if you're interested, you like what you listen or hear, please do become a paid member. All right. Tony, how you doing? Let's just start off. How are you feeling? Tony?
Yep, all good. Thanks. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Tony. I'm actually looking forward to talking to you about this match because I find it fascinating. The more that I got into it the last couple of days, not that I didn't already know enough about Leeds United, but I've learned more. And just to get the feel for what this match means to them, what it potentially means to Fulham, there's a lot to this that's just not cut and dry. There's a lot to talking about these two teams and what it means. So before we get into that, Marco had his presser yesterday, and there are a couple of snippets that I took out of it. I mentioned out on the show yesterday, but the one I want to talk to you about, which I think is fairly significant, has to do with Josh King. So what's interesting is that anyone that's watched Motspur Park Life, you'll see that Josh King is on there, which is actually a positive sign. Same thing with Rodrigo Muniz. Before we talk about King, Marco mentioned, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, that he could be ready by mid-February. So I think he's on track for that period. Josh King, I think, is on a much faster track. In fact, Tony, he might be back for the Leeds United match to play a role. I think if he is, this is a significant boost for Fulham Football Club. We'll see when we see the starting 11 and the bench revealed on Saturday, but this is a big deal for me.
Yeah, big player to obviously, to get back. Hopefully he will be fit. I can't see him starting, Russ,
No.
but I can see him coming back in and taking an important, spot on the bench, and then see how the game goes. And at some point, you'd like to think that, depending on how the game's going, that he will get on at some point.
Right, Tony. And listen, I don't expect him to start either. I don't expect that. But if he's fit and available to play, I could see him playing a role that I'm not saying Fulham have missed Josh King. I think, listen, they have been winning matches, getting points. They've been getting by. But bringing a player like this with what he can offer, not just with him being a dynamic player at this point coming off the bench, but I just think that there's so much to his game that, again, we're going to see over the course of his career. But I will put what he could offer just as a young player. I just think his legs could play a major role, meaning that fight that he has once he comes on the pitch. When I would say if he comes on, say, in the 60th minute and Fulham need that extra burst, that's what I think he can give you.
Yeah, 100%. Look, he plays with no fear, as you know. He's got the capability of, getting at teams. He will be relatively, fresh in regards to the fact that he's had a bit of time out. Hopefully, as I said, his knee injury's cleared up. But what he does give you, the qualities that he gives you, is when he gets on the ball, he takes players on, he runs at players, he makes defenders make decisions, and that's what you need. And hopefully, he can come on and the game will be well won, and he can just, get some important minutes under his belt. But if we need a player to come on to change things or to, give us something different, he's also that player that you want. So it's a great option to have, and obviously we need it, because I think that the way that the squad is at the moment, we need as many players as we can get back to keep us on this great run that we're on.
Totally agree, Tony. I would definitely agree with that. And what's interesting, like I said, we're going to talk about the players that have been away at AFCON and what they're going to mean when they come back. And obviously, at some point, it doesn't sound like he's ready yet, but Kenny Tete will be back. Rodrigo Muniz, as I just mentioned, probably will be back in mid-February. You put all these players into the team that we're currently having. That's what's so fascinating about what's going on with Fulham Football Club. By the way, they just brought Ryan Sessegnon back, coming back from injury. So Fulham are going to get healthier during a period of time where they're getting points where I think on paper you would think that they wouldn't get points against Liverpool, against Chelsea, against even Crystal Palace. They've gotten points. They've actually increased where they're headed. They have not lost, and I don't know how many games. I'm sure someone can tell me that, but it's heading in the positive direction. So I always thought about this. If you could, what I would say, hold serve until the reinforcements come in, then we could be in a very good place. But you know what? They've done better than that. They've done better than hold serve. They've actually increased where Fulham are headed, Tony. That's what's exciting.
Yep. Absolutely. And I think that, as I say, I'm sure we'll come on to it and we'll talk about it in much more, depth and detail. But as I said, I think for me, I wouldn't want to rush King back. I think that, for me, he needs to be 100%. I think he would have had that. And, he would have had like training all week. They would have assessed him. And if he feels good in himself, then Marco Silva will definitely name him on the bench. But obviously, if they feel that, I say, it depends how the game goes. If the game's easily won and we don't have to worry about it, then maybe they won't bring him on. Maybe they'll leave him rest another week and then get him more involved later on. But obviously, if we need him because the game's not going our way, then he is a great option to have.
Absolutely. And like I said, I think the match itself will dictate, I think, if he's available to play, if he plays. But again, we don't know. All I know is Josh King is close and could be playing against Leeds United, which is exciting for me. All right, Tony, let's move on. I want to ask you this question because we talked about this. And I was concerned. I know you were very concerned. We're both very concerned. If we go back and say December, how would Fulham cope without these three players? So I'm asking you honestly, how much have Fulham missed these three players being away at AFCON? Because I know that they've missed them. I mean, that's obvious. But for whatever reason, why do I feel that with these players, other players have stepped up, the group has come together, maybe more tight, played together as a team. And for some reason, I think it's galvanized Fulham with these players out.
It's crazy to say this, Russ, but obviously if you're going on the last 6 matches that Fulham have played, 14 points from 18.
That's crazy.
The answer is Fulham haven't missed them. In that regard, they haven't, because the results have spoken for themselves. And that's crazy to think, because prior to them going, Chukwueze hit a massive purple patch, and you're thinking, this guy's going to be absolutely on fire, and we're going to miss his, creativity and energy. Bassi has been a constant rock at the back, and Iwobi has been one of our, best sort of creators and players in middle. So you're thinking that, losing those three is going to be catastrophic. But actually, I think you're right, Russ. I think by them going away, the rest of the team and the group have had to step up, and they really have stepped it up. And so the problem, and it's a great headache to have, by the way, when they get back, Marco Silva's got some big decisions to make, really big decisions to make.
Sure. So let's use for instance, as an example, right? Because like I said, on paper, it looked like it could be devastating. Let's start with Calvin Bassey. Calvin Bassey leaves, and again, Calvin Bassey has been your starting center back on the left for the entire season. Now, you and I had a lot of faith in Jorge Cuenca. I think he's proven that. In fact, I think, in my opinion, Calvin Bassey has to win the position back because Jorge Cuenca has made it his own. So that to me, again, players stepping up, getting the opportunity, and just taking advantage of it. Okay, that's what. Look in the middle, because I think, in my opinion, Fulham are moving Alex Iwobi centrally. I don't know if it's permanent, but I think we're going to see more and more of this. So what happens? You and I are complaining about the double pivot. What happens? Marco puts Tom Kearney into the mix, Harrison Reed into the mix, players that I don't even think I really factored in while Iwobi was gone. Now they're playing, and they're playing roles. And oh, by the way, I think Sasa Lukic has stepped up during this period of time to, and again, maybe take on this challenge. When you and and I'm on here, I'm like, the double pivot, we can't have the double pivot. Well, he's stepping up. So I want to give him a lot of credit. Berger too, they're all stepping up. Chikwueze. Now that's a little bit different, because I think in some ways, I think Fulham have missed Chikwueze, but then you got Harry Wilson going off on the other side. Okay, you got Harry Wilson going nuts. So he has picked up the slack. Kevin is working his slowly way into taking advantage of his opportunity. It hasn't been perfect, but I think it's getting better. I think he's taking advantage of his opportunity to learn his craft in the Premier League. So with these players out, others have stepped up. I think that's the best way to look at this.
Yeah, 100%. And I've actually, when you analyze it and you think about it a little bit more detail, I actually don't think the headaches are as big as maybe I might first assume. I think that from a defensive point of view, Bassey's had a fantastic tournament in the AFCONs. I mean, the other night he was Nigeria's best player against Morocco, no question about it. Obviously, he's a very different defender to Cuenca. And unfortunately for Cuenca, however well he's played and however well he's done, and with Diop as well.
Yeah, Diop's played great too.
I just think that Bassey, will eventually slip back into that position alongside Anderson, because, Marco Silva's two main centre halves are Bassey and Anderson. It might be that Anderson has to have one game on. Sorry, it might be that Bassey has to have one game on the bench, but prior to that. But eventually he will be dropped back in. Likewise, I think that, as you said, Russ, the double pivot with Berger and Lukic, I think, is over. I think when Iwobi gets back, your midfield three is going to be Smith Rowe, Iwobi, and Lukic.
That's what I think.
I don't, I think that's where.
Or Berger, maybe he'll mix and match.
Maybe, but I don't think we'll see both of them again in any time soon.
Yep.
And I think Chikwueze will come in for Kevin, because I think still. Yep. With Kevin's development, I still think Kevin is an impact player. I don't think he's a starter. I don't think he's somebody that can give you what you want over a long period. But I think he's someone you can definitely, bring off the bench with half an hour to go, and he can impact the game in a much better way.
Yeah.
So I think with those three coming back, you'd like to think that actually, bar any transfer signings, which looks, doubtful now, those three will strengthen us. And help us push on. So if we've got to the point we've got to now without them, we should be able to get to another point with them and kick on.
That's what's exciting, Tony. And oh, by the way, I also mentioned Ryan Sessegnon. Okay, so Ryan Sessegnon just recently comes back. Rodrigo Muniz is coming back. These guys are coming back. And this is why I've been just advocating, please bring in impact players. And what's interesting, if you've been seeing what Marco's been saying about players that want for him to see with Fulham, he wants impact players. He doesn't just want them to bring in players. I find that revealing. And also, I've said this, Tony, and again, I said this when I did the show yesterday. The words that Marco's talking, again, this is just my opinion, that he wants to be here. Doesn't sound like a manager that's going to be short term. He's talking like a manager that wants to be here long term. And oh, by the way, Glasner's on his way out, which is interesting. Okay, he's declared that. Marco Silva has not, Tony. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Glasner, Palace, what a disaster. I mean,
I feel bad for them, man. That's a mess now.
I've got a feeling that he's being shadowed in for the Man U job, I would imagine, Glasner.
I think you're right.
I think, reading between the lines, that's why he's off at the end of the season. He's probably had those conversations, and he's a shoo-in at the end of the season, more than likely. Who knows? But look, at the end of the day, Fulham have to worry about Marco Silva first and foremost, and we all know that he's got to sign that contract, Russell. He has to sign that contract, because if he doesn't, then we are in a very precarious, position, not just as a football club, but just, across the board. It's going to be very, very difficult and very challenging from that point forward. So that is something that the club have to get done sooner rather than later.
Well, like I said, this has been hanging on for such a long period of time. And, like I said, if I'm reading between the lines of what I've seen in his pressers, he does not sound like a manager leaving. But again, who knows? He doesn't sound that way. He's talking about long-term planning. He wants impact players for the long term, not for the short term. And then he keeps talking about that they're all aligned when it comes to transfers. It just doesn't add up of a manager leaving. But again, he hasn't signed the contract. We shall see. All right, my friend, let's move on. Let's talk about Harry Wilson. Now, what's interesting here is that this is just me being me, okay? I'm glad that Harry Wilson wins goal of the month, okay? I could give two craps about awards like this. I really could. It's just not what I'm about. I don't care about, listen, I live here and I'm a Patriots fan. I don't care about the MVP. I could give two craps about that. I care about the Patriots. I care about Fulham. But listen, it's always good to get notoriety, especially for our club. So this is well-deserved because that was a fantastic goal, I believe, from the Crystal Palace match.
Yeah, he deserves it. To be honest with you, the way he's been playing, I can't believe he didn't actually win Premier League Player of the Month, actually, which was astounding. I think it went to Calvert-Lewin, funnily enough, which, is interesting. But look, he deserves it. He's had an unbelievable period. And we are lucky and blessed to have him. And, long may that form continue. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely, Tony. And that's what's interesting here, because anyone that has watched or listened, Tony and myself, back in the summer, I'm not saying that Harry Wilson was an afterthought, but I'm just saying we weren't really thinking of him in these terms. And that's what's great, is that you can see a player who has gone up a notch, gone up a level to really, I think, just be the player that, Chris is watching right now, the Liverpool support, probably the player that Liverpool hoped that he would come into. Well, that's now who he is now. And he's in his prime. And that's the beauty here. But again, out of contract, Tony. Ryan Sessegnon out of contract. Not great, but hopefully he is a Fulham player for years to come, along with Ryan Sessegnon. All right, my friend, let's move on. Before we go through our three keys to victory and really break this match down, just give me your thoughts on Leeds United, because what's interesting about them is that if you watch them, and I'm gonna share this on my screen, because we're gonna go through basically looking at their potential starting 11 from WhoScored.com against Fulham. But I'll actually wait till I share it. But currently, Leeds are 16th on 22 points, and Fulham are 9th at 31 points. So they're still not safe. They still could be in a relegation battle. In fact, they are right now. But the situation with them is I don't know what I'm trying to put who they are. I think that they're probably going to stay up, Tony. And I think they play very well against the big clubs. I think when it comes to Leeds United, for them to stay in the Premier League, they're going to have to beat a team like Fulham. So what do you make of Leeds United heading into the match?
I think we're playing them. I think we're playing a very dangerous Leeds side. Okay. Actually, I think they're in a good vein of form. I think they've extended their unbeaten run to, 7 matches.
Yeah.
They've got home advantage. And we've had this conversation, Russ. I think Fulham are going to have to be at their very, very best to get a result there.
Okay.
Calvert-Lewin has just got Premier League Player of the Month. I was completely and utterly shot down 4 or 5 months ago by saying that Fulham should go in and sign him. No, he's finished. He's washed. he's rubbish, he can't play, blah, 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 blah. He's going to keep Leeds United in this division, Russ. That's the bottom line. And he's a good centre forward, and we missed out there. I genuinely believe we missed out there. So look, it's not going to be an easy game. I think Daniel Farke is a lot of people don't rate him. I think actually he understands football. He's got a good technical and tactical brain. He'll set Leeds up to be very aggressive, and they will be at us. They'll be in us. They will definitely try and hit us at our weaknesses. They'll know our weaknesses, set pieces, corners. They will absolutely try and take advantage of all those opportunities. And like I said, Fulham are going to have to be on their mettle tomorrow, because if they're not, then, as you know, Russ, unfortunately, I don't think we're getting anything from this game.
I know how you feel about this.
Based on that. But look, I'm hoping I'll be proved massively wrong. But I just think with the way that Leeds are playing at the moment, they've got the bit between their teeth. And I just think they're going to be too aggressive for Fulham on the day, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. Fair enough, my friend. Listen, I want you to be honest on how you feel. So let's get to 3 keys to victory. I'll get us going with number 3. And while you were talking, I already had this in my mind that I would put this as a key to victory. And this is kind of a twofold. It just deals with set pieces. It's basically Fulham have to be at it. Defending set pieces, like we've been talking about consistently, they cannot give up a poor goal on a corner. They cannot give up a poor goal on a set piece. And they need to capitalize on their own. So this, to me, could be a set piece match for Fulham Football Club. That's my number 3 key to victory.
Yeah, great point. Mine will be, we've got to silence the crowd as early as possible.
There you go. I was going to mention that. That's a good one.
And that means that we have to start the game, get on top, and get the lead early. We've got to get in front early, because the longer we leave it, the harder and more difficult it's going to become. And if once that Leeds crowd gets going, it's almost like having a 12th man, Russ. Yeah. It's going to be very, very difficult. So we have to silence the crowd. That's my 3rd key to victory.
Okay. And I wouldn't say counter, but my follow-up to that, Tony, is that if they get the crowd out of it, and I wasn't putting this as a key to victory, but it goes along with this. If Fulham get the lead, this crowd will turn on Leeds United. It could work in Fulham's favor. So I will add that Fulham need to control the crowd by the way that they play. Does that make sense?
Yep, 100%.
Okay, so let's go to number 2. And Chris is going to like this one, because for me, go with your hot hand. Feed Harry Wilson as much as possible. Get him involved as much as possible. Let him not take over the match, but influence the match as much as possible. Because right now, with the lack of players that Fulham have at their disposal because of AFCON, because of injuries, I think they need to get Harry Wilson involved. And plus, he's playing with that confidence. You want him playing with this incredible confidence and influence in the match that can influence his teammates. Get him involved early. Get him the ball and let him do his thing, Tony. For me, this is a Harry Wilson game.
Yep, great point. My 2nd key to victory, Russ, is the midfield battle.
Okay, that's a good one.
Fulham have to dominate the midfield tomorrow. It's as simple as that. If we can get on top of their midfield, and we've got to remember they've signed Facundo Buonanotte from Brighton as well.
They have.
He's a very talented, very technical, very decent player, and we've got to stop. I don't know whether he'll start or not, but he's definitely going to be in contention. But we have to match their physicality, we have to match their tenacity, and obviously from our point of view, we have to be much better with our distribution tomorrow from midfield areas in terms of our passing. We've been quite loose in recent games where we've turned the ball over and given it away. We cannot afford to give Leeds the opportunity to break lines tomorrow on transition, because we've been, neglectful in possession. So we have to be much better in possession, but we have to get on top and win the midfield battle. That is absolutely critical.
That's a great key, Tony. That's going to lead to both of our number 1 keys to victory. And this one is pretty much standard for me. It's talking about Marco Silva winning the coaching battle. But for me, this is even bigger because of the unknown. I'm not sure exactly how Marco is going to set Fulham up, and we're going to talk about that when we get to starting 11 prediction. He's got a choice right now of what formation he wants to play. He's got a choice of who he's going to play in midfield. He's got a lot of choices at his disposal to find the right mix to play against Leeds United. The one interesting thing that you've already talked about with Daniel Farke and Leeds United, they're not going to surprise you. You know what you're going to get from them. It's how you set up, how you game plan against this team. If you get it right and put Fulham in the right position, Fulham might, again, I know you're not feeling confident. I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm putting a lot of faith in Marco Silva here. Putting Fulham in the right position for the players to get the victory. So for me, this is truly a Marco Silva game. If he sets Fulham up right, and we'll talk about that when we talk about the starting 11, with the right formation, the right players, I think Fulham have a very good chance of not just getting a point, but winning.
Absolutely, Russ. And this is where Marco Silva earns his dollar, and he's got a big decision to make tomorrow. And it's going to be really interesting to analyze that and talk about it. My number one key to victory is very simple.
Yeah.
We have to get Raul in their 18-yard box. We have to get our wide players wide and high, and we have to put good delivery into the box for Raul to be able to attack and be effective in this game. There is no point having Raul playing up top tomorrow, holding the ball up, working hard, doing the donkey work that he does, and then not get him into the positions where he can go and score goals and actually win us the game. And I think he could be the difference between the two sides tomorrow, but providing we get him into the right areas and get the balls to him. So how we line up in wide areas tomorrow and who are putting those balls into the box is going to be absolutely fundamental as far as I'm concerned, in my opinion.
Okay.
That's where I think that's the number one key for me.
Okay, and this is going to be interesting because now we're going to go in the starting 11, and we'll also talk about formation. What does Marco do compared to what I know Leeds United is probably going to do? They're probably going to, I mean, based on the history, it's going to be three at the back, some version of maybe a 3-5-2, probably, I should say. So let's get to it, Tony, and I'm going to share on my screen from WhoScored.com. By the way, they are predicting WhoScored.com a 1-1 draw, which is interesting. So that's their prediction. But I want to show you what they're showing us for the lineup here. So they're going with Leeds United with a 3-5-2. So if you look at that, they're predicting, WhoScored.com is predicting a 3-4-2-1. You see the players out there. So that gives you food for thought before you and I pick our starting 11 and formation. I want to also mention formation. It's interesting because they have Quink and Diop reversed. It should be the other sides. But that is what they have, what they're feeling as a 3-5-2 versus a 3-4-2-1, Tony. All right, let's get to it. Give me what you would do, not what Marco would do. Then we'll talk about what we think Marco will do. For a starting 11 and a formation. And I'm going to ask you a question. Is this a Kearney game or not a Kearney game?
So, in my opinion, Russ, for us to win the game tomorrow, we have to go 4-5-1.
Oh, okay.
Out of possession.
Okay.
And in possession, it becomes a 4-3-3.
Okay. Okay. So you're scrapping the three at the back. You're scrapping it.
I'm going 4-4-5-1. And what that would look like would be, it would be Leno. It would be Castagna, Anderson, Cuenca, and Robinson.
Okay.
Three in the middle. Unfortunately, what I'd go with would be Berger, Lukic, Smith Rowe.
Okay, so you're going with a double pivot. Okay.
Yeah. I'm then going Wilson, Kevin, and Jimenez.
Okay. So I'm actually going to go with this formation. I'm going to go with actually what WhoScored.com has come up with, Tony. Except for one change that we haven't mentioned. So they have actually, well, I shouldn't say that. They've got Rowe, Wilson, Jimenez. Yeah, so that's what they're going with. That to me, I think gives you a good. I like Kearney in this match. I want someone that's going to get some kind of control for us. So I like Kearney Lukic, but what I also like is the ability to change things up with Kevin and possibly Ryan Sessegnon. So I am going to go with Leno, Cuenca, Anderson, Diop. I'm going to go with let's see. Let's see. Castagna, Robinson, Lukic, Kearney, Wilson, Rowe, and Jimenez. So what do you make of that before we talk about I'm going to go with their starting 11.
Yeah, look, I completely see it, Russ. I get where you're coming from, and you know, funny enough, Chris says save Tony. Actually,
oh wow,
the reason I've gone with that, Chris, is simply because of the physicality that Leeds are going to bring.
Okay,
from obviously from their centre halves, but also from midfield, and I just don't see this being a game for Tom Kearney. I think it's with the way that Leeds
too
play,
physical,
the way they press, the way they work. I just don't think Kearney's going to get as much time on the ball as he'd like. And that way, and that what happens.
So you think he becomes a waste?
He becomes ineffective. Not a waste so much, but just ineffective because, you know, I just don't think he's going to be able to influence the game. However, it's not to say that as the game progresses, if Fulham can get a foothold and win that physicality, then we can bring him on in order then to control the game at a later stage, providing obviously we're on the front foot and we're in control. So that's the reason I'm coming from. Not because I don't think he could do the job. It's just that I think that Berger and Lukic will just give us a little bit more stability, physically. Yeah, and that's the reason why I'm going with that.
Okay, I actually think Fulham have upped their physicality, but I see what you're saying.
And also, Russ, because I don't think Kevin gives us enough defensively either.
Okay.
And so you've got to weigh up that situation as well, because I just don't think he's got it in him to do the defensive work off the ball. And I just think by having Berger in there and Lukic, that just sort of counteracts that a little bit.
Okay. And if you do it the way you want to do it, you also have a lot of options off the bench to change it if you need to.
Definitely.
You can fully change it if you want. So I get where you're going. What do you think Marco's going to do?
I think he's going to stick with a 3 at the back, Russ.
That's what I think.
Because I think he's had a lot of joy. I think he's happy with the way that the team's played, you know, in that formation, that shape. I think he feels comfortable. I do think we look a little bit more solid defensively. So why would he change it? I think that's the question you've got to ask him. And I think the only reason he would change it is to the things that I've alluded to, because Leeds are just a little bit more physical than a lot of the sides that we've
true
recently. So I think this is where, as I said, this is what he's going to be weighing up. And this is what he would have been thinking about. And it will be very, very interesting to see what he actually goes with tomorrow. But I will be surprised if he does change it. But don't be surprised if he does.
Okay. All right. Good stuff. This is why I do the show with you, man. This is why I enjoy it, is that we can talk about it and we can try to figure out, get in the head of a manager, which we really can't, but we can just play around with it. And that's what's fun about doing the show with you, my friend. All right. It's that time. You've already kind of made it known that you are picking Leeds United. So give me your prediction. And I know you don't want to, but listen, I understand why you're doing this, because you're being honest. This is what you believe. So give me your prediction.
Yeah. Again, my prediction all depends on how Marco Silva turns up tomorrow, Russ. But I'm going on the fact that he's going to line up the way I think he is.
Yeah.
And if he does, I don't think Fulham win the game. And unfortunately, I think Fulham, this is where Fulham's run comes to an end. I think Leeds will beat us 2-1.
Okay. So I understand that and I respect that. I'm going the opposite. I'm going 2-1 to Fulham, with the idea that Fulham not only will be able to match the physicality, but will have the creativity to break this team down and will not make the errors that a team like this can cause, because I think Marco will set the team up knowing where the weaknesses are, take advantage of them, and exploit them. And for me, that's where I want to give Marco a lot of credit, because I believe he will have Fulham set up correctly. There's been times where I think the Everton match was the one that's like, what are you doing? But it hasn't happened that often. Sometimes it does happen. He doesn't get it right all the time to set the team up. But I think his coaching staff and himself do a great job of putting Fulham in the position to start a game to win the match. And I think he's going to do it here again. The question is, will they be able to execute what he needs them to and play error-free? Because that, to me, is what you have to do against a team like this. You cannot give this team that life, that ability to be even more physical, to dominate. You got to take that away. You got to take the crowd out. So that's what's fascinating about this. How does Marco play it? Well, we're gonna find out. But I am going 2-1 to Fulham. Friend here says 2-2. Let's see. We've got says Leeds 3-2. Okay, that's fine. I certainly can understand that. I don't blame anyone for picking Leeds because it's a team that actually really needs the 3 points. They're at home. This all makes sense. The reason why I feel good about this, Tony, is, again, I think this talks to how Leeds United have been playing lately, especially against the bigger teams, the top 6 teams. I think not just for the supporters, but also for the players, it gives them a feeling that, well, if we play so well against those teams, we can just beat Fulham. And I think that I'm not saying that they're not taking Fulham seriously. I'm just saying that there is this potential letdown from Leeds United because, and pressure afterwards, they're expected to win this. What happens if we hit them in the mouth? And I think that's what's going to happen. That's why I am predicting.
I really hope you are right, Russell. As I said, I want to be proved wrong. Absolutely, 100%. I really do. My gut is, unfortunately, Fulham have been on such a crest of a wave. And I think that I think it's going to be a game where the legs, the physicality, the strength of the game, the Premier League just catches up with, because we haven't been able to refresh it enough. And I just think that we are just lacking a little bit of fresh legs, and we need those boys from Nigeria back.
Well,
to give us that strength in depth. But look, you could well be right, Russ. And look, there's no reason why Fulham can't go there and be.
They shouldn't be fearing going to Ellen Road.
Absolutely. But I think Sebastian made the point there, is that this is a very different Leeds side to the one that we played back at Craven Cottage. I think they are a lot more organised now. They've got a bit more belief. They've got a centre forward who's on fire, who's playing very well, scoring goals. And I just think that unfortunately, from Fulham's perspective, we have a mistake in us defensively, and we're not great at set pieces. We are still susceptible from that.
Absolutely.
Because Marco Silva will not move away from that zonal marking. So whilst we continue to do that, I think we are, that is our Achilles heel, and that is a weakness for us. And I think Leeds will try to exploit that, and I think they'll have a lot of joy there.
Well, that's what I would do if I was Dan Frank. I would take advantage of Fulham's weaknesses. But here I am talking about Leeds' weaknesses. But we shall see, my friend. Great show. Before we go, any final thoughts, my friend?
No, look, I'm looking forward to the game. And I say, I hope your prediction is right. Let's hope we can roll on and get another, because 3 points tomorrow, Russ. I mean, Fulham then are moving into a whole different stratosphere. So, yeah.
Right. Well, that's the whole thing, Tony. What's interesting about this, let's just play the game, okay? Let's say Fulham win. It sets so many things up because you got the players coming back. That's why if I'm Marco Silva and I'm the players and I'm thinking, if we can just beat Leeds United, then now we're going up another notch. Then you keep going up a notch.
But then you've got Brighton at home, Russ.
Then you got Brighton at home, and then you got Everton coming, and then Manchester United. So it's an interesting, listen, you and I went through the next 6, and I'm telling you that, I came up with I think I came up with 9, which is ballsy to predict. But if they did, we're on to something, man. And I think if you beat Leeds United, it becomes this platform that just takes you to another level. I hope I'm right. Tony, you could very easily be right. And then you and I are talking, and you're like, Russ, unfortunately, I was right. And then I can accept that. I'm the eternal optimist. Before I go, I have to share this real quick. because Chris is a Patriots fan along with myself. 15 minutes from my house, Tony, on Sunday. Prediction, Patriots to advance in the AFC Championship game. That's how I'm leaving. And that's what I'm hoping, Chris. Chris, I don't know if you know this, I am literally 15 minutes away. So I'm that close. But I'll be watching in my house, and I'm looking forward to that. But again, I want to talk about Fulham, but I had to mention that because you mentioned it, Chris. Anyways, well, that's going to do it for this episode. He's Tony Gold. I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk.